Slugs is a horror film that was released in 1988 and directed by J.P. Simon, and this is based on a novel that is considered a paperback of horror by Grady Hendrix. He released a book, I forget what year, but it's a great book. I actually want to get my hands on it myself, about all kinds of novels that came out in the 70s, 80s, and 90s that were horror and were a thing back then. Think Goosebumps and Fear Street and stuff like that, but for adults and with a lot heavier subjects. And this was one of them. It was also called Slugs, and they made a film about it. I actually watched the film first. I didn't even know it was based on a book until a little bit more recently. But the movie is incredible, and this is an Arrow release. Arrow always does. They're really good at picking titles when it comes to horror films and when it comes to obscure, nasty stuff like this. This is a Spanish production, but it is in English. It's an American story. It's an American plot. This, unfortunately, does have a lot of dubbing and a lot of ADR, I think they call it, where people speak over the characters, and you do get a lot of mismatch when it comes to the lips and the communication. I can't stand that, to be honest. Like 99% of the time, I can't even watch the film. I'll forgive this one, though, even though it does get annoying as hell. I'll forgive it for this one because practical effects in this film are beautiful. And, I mean, this film it scores most of its points because of its practical effects. And the slugs look disgusting. The horror scenes, like the deaths, are fantastic. This is a very 80s feeling movie when it comes to the simple plot, and when it comes to some of the ADR annoyances, you can kind of forgive them, at least I can. So what we have going on here is we have this guy named Mike Brady, and at the beginning of the film, we're introduced to this group of people at a bar. We have this woman named Maureen, who's there with her husband, I believe, Dave. And then we have Mike and his wife Kim, and they're basically just having drinks together. Maureen is a bit of a drinker, and she's kind of not handling herself properly. And then Mike and his wife Kim decide to leave. They run into Mike's partner Don Palmer. So Don Palmer basically, I forget his exact title, but he's basically responsible for like the sewage and keeping the water system going and in the small town that they live in, kind of thing. And Don Palmer is he's the head of the facility or something like that. So he's basically in charge of the pumps and the waters and the sewage and the city water stuff kind of thing. I really can't think of the title. Mike Brady himself is a police officer. He works underneath the sheriff of the town. There's a really funny scene with them when they're heading to this house. At the beginning of the film, there is this, I don't think he's a squatter. I think he actually lives in this home, but this home is completely run down. It's absolutely disgusting. This guy lives like a complete pig. His house is falling apart, literally, and it so happens that in the basement of his house, there's starting to be a slug infestation, and for reasons I'll get to, but his house is basically disgusting. It's unlivable, literally. It looks like a house that somebody would be squatting in, but he lives there, and they're going to evict him. So Mike Brady with the sheriff drive over to his house to evict this guy. And on the drive there, this film is filled with what I call news anchor music. And aside from the tense horror scenes where they actually play more tense music, everything else just feels like news anchor kind of elevator music filler. And it's quite funny, the music choices that they decide for that. So on the ride there's this news anchor music playing, and then they're having this conversation about littering. And Mike Brady, as a joke, says, because the sheriff puts a candy in his mouth, and Mike Brady's like, "Hey, you know what they found in those candies once? Rat shit." And then the cop spits the candy out the window, but it's the worst ADR ever. He's like, it doesn't match his mouth movement or his the voice doesn't sound like it's actually coming from him. It's the weirdest ever. It's you can watch it as a comedy and you can laugh at these things. Mostly they annoy me though. That's why I'm not an ADR fan at all. And when it comes to being able to choose subtitles, I'd rather do that. But this film takes place in America, so it's supposed to be fully English anyway. So subtitles wouldn't really make sense either. But they get to the house, this guy's dead, and the practical effects look beautiful. This guy is just a skeleton. He's been completely eaten away by the slugs. And every scene where people are eaten away by the slugs, it's just horrifically disgusting. It's magnificent. I like how this film opens too. I can't believe I forgot to say the actual opening of this film. It starts off with this couple on a lake, and they're on like this like rowboat kind of thing. And this is also called Slugs the movie, and I like how they emphasize the movie after Slugs because it being based on a novel, it's kind of like cheesy but funny at the same time how they call it Slugs the movie. And this couple is just hanging out on the boat, and then the guy falls in, and of course the girl thinks he's playing a joke, but then you see the water bubbling and you get all that cheesy blood, and then the girl falls in herself. So that opening was kind of funny. But as the film goes on, what happens is you have Mike Brady, who's the main character of the movie, finding all these other slugs popping up kind of thing around the town, and especially very nearby that house that they went to evict this guy from. So from the house, as like the first core source kind of thing, slugs seem to be spreading out to the neighbors and all that, and you have slug discoveries kind of thing. And the film goes on, and where it just plays the classic like toxic waste kind of story. You have this area of the town that used to be a toxic waste dump, and it got buried, and then a couple decades later, obviously some kind of slug mutation happened in that area, and that's what started and led up to this situation going on right now, where you have a massive slug infestation in the town. There's one scene involving this guy named Bobby, and there are quite a few side plots in this film going on at the same time as this Mike Brady and Sheriff story. You have this kid named Bobby, he's in high school, and he goes over to his girlfriend's house at one point when her parents are away, and he's just waiting outside until she blinks the lights. It's very 80s, and then he goes in and they start to do their thing, and there's one of the best kills that kind of reminds me of the Tina kill in A Nightmare on Elm Street. Not in the same vein, obviously. This girl's not like going all over the ceiling or anything like that, but there's slugs all over the bedroom floor after they're done fucking. And she falls off the bed, and she's completely being mauled and eaten by these slugs, and it's horrific. Like I'm telling you, like gore galore. If you're a gore hound, if you like your gore fests and stuff, this girl's just being mauled and completely like eaten alive by these slugs while Buddy is on the bed. And you have this whole like floor is lava kind of situation where he tries to like jump onto the like cabinet or wherever, the dresser or whatever it is, because he wants to get to the window and escape without touching the floor that's full of slugs and following in the same fate as his girlfriend. But he also doesn't seem to care too much about his girlfriend or the fact that she's getting literally mauled and eaten alive by slugs. He's very nonchalant about that whole thing. So that's kind of fucked up. There's this scene involving Maureen with Dave at their house, and Maureen prepares a salad. And this is actually one of the most famous parts of this film that I've seen in other people's reviews, is when she's chopping up the lettuce, she chops up a slug inside the lettuce, and it's a practical effect slug, and when she's chopping it, you see like the insides of the slug, and I'm not saying it's the most realistic looking thing in the world, but it still gives you that disgust, because she's cutting into a slug, and she's putting like the lettuce together, and they're about to eat it. So it gives you that, like, it's one of those situations where it puts more images in your mouth than puts more images in your head than it actually shows you. So it certainly works more with your imagination, because you don't actually see them eat the salad or anything like that. You just kind of see the aftermath where Dave is starting to have stomach pains, and he starts to like cramp up a lot because of what he just ate. Now I don't know how the slug would be able to lay eggs or whatever inside of him, which is what ends up happening after being chopped up. That's, the logic is a bit out the window on that one, but we're here for gore. We're not here for logic. as much, so again, it's something that's a little bit forgivable. Now, there's this character named John Foley. John Foley is a British scientist, and this is the guy that basically Mike Brady decides to go seek for help, kind of thing, in defeating these slugs. And he's able to put together a concoction of lithium type kind of liquid, and he figures out that this is going to be destructive to the slugs because of their sliminess, and because of anything that this lithium stuff comes into contact that has moisture will basically make them explode, kind of thing. It's like a flammable kind of substance when it comes to moisture. This guy's funny. I like the way he talks, and he's very nerdy. He's got like the glasses and like the toupee going on with his hair, and he's just this comical presence that really adds to the film, and I like that. As I was saying with side plots too, when it comes to these high school kids, including Bobby and everybody, this takes place on Halloween, or at least very close to Halloween. So these kids want to have this bush party, and there's this Halloween party that ends up going on like kind of on the outskirts of this town. And what happens in the scene is we're following this girl named Pam. And Pam is like a shy, kind of reclusive girl. She's not a partier. She doesn't like partying very much. She doesn't like drinking very much, but she's kind of like pressured and not forced, but she's very much pressured and peer pressured to go to this party, especially by this guy who wants in her pants. And they're casually dating, but she doesn't want to put out. She's probably a virgin, and she doesn't want to like take that step yet, kind of thing. But he's really trying to like get there and make things happen, kind of thing. And you have the stereotypical like, you're such a tease, well, if you're gonna, all you are is a prude and all you want to do is play games, well, I'm not having any of it. And there's this other guy who, I don't know what his relationship is to the guy who was trying to get into her pants, but this guy wears a Halloween costume, puts on a skeleton mask, and like enacts an actual like full-on sexual assault on this girl. Like, he attempts to get in her pants forcefully, and it's very of its time. It's quite uncomfortable. And what makes it the most tragic is that this girl gets away, and she kicks him and she runs away, and then she goes to hide in the sewer. Can you guess where this is going? And she gets in there, and then like 2 minutes later into the film, like, it cuts to another scene, but then it cuts back to that scene, and you see her in the sewer. She's unconscious, laying in the water, and then she gets dragged by the slugs into the sewer. So not only did she not want to go to the party, and not only was she having the most uncomfortable night of her life because of this boyfriend trying to get in her pants, and then this other guy totally sexually assaulting the chick, or trying to, and then she gets away and goes into the sewer and ends up dying a tragic, horrible, painful death. So, bad taste much? Yeah. I do wonder how they would play that out in the novel, because usually novels are a bit more detailed. But in the film, yeah, they don't hold back from that very much at all. So later on, I was saying Maureen and Dave, after eating the salad, they have this, at least Dave has this business meeting where he goes to this business meeting with these people. They're supposed to sign some kind of contract. And outside of the lettuce scene, this is probably the most famous part of the film, is when he starts to get the cramps again, and he takes a sip of his drink, and then his nose just completely starts to bleed into the drink. Like, it just starts to pour, and you get this red, like, concoction of blood mixing in with the drink in his hand. And then he just starts screaming, and he starts grabbing his head, and he falls backwards on the chair. And then you have the best practical effects from his eyeball, and these maggots just come right out of his eyeball. And it's beautiful if you're a gore hound. If you like your practical effects and you love your gore, it's one of the best gore scenes in a film. And they did such a good job with the practical effects on that scene. I absolutely love it. John Foley and Don Palmer, who's the sewage water guy, like I said, and Mike Brady, they decide to use this lithium concoction to lure the slugs into the sewer, all into one place. And then they want to basically, once the slugs are in one place, just pour the lithium down the sewer and basically explode them all in one place. So they use electricity to try to get the slugs into one place. The whole sewer system kind of finale I found pretty cool. And the electrocution definitely looks cheesy. It's very outdated. It doesn't look realistic whatsoever. But I liked the the location of the sewers. The location of the sewers definitely looked cool. I like the scene where they're trying to get over this like pit of water and with the slugs all in it, but at this point it's all like electrocuted, so they can't really touch the water or anything like that. Of course, Dawn ends up falling in, and Dawn's death is pretty quick. You don't really see like a tragedy to it. They kind of like rush through it in a sense, and although there's a scene at the end where John Foley and Mike Brady are kind of mourning his death, I do still think they rushed through it a little bit too much, and it took away from the drama kind of thing, but that's just a small little complaint. There's this greenhouse kill I forgot to mention that I really love. This guy named Harold and his wife have this little greenhouse at their place, and the slugs start to come like invade it. The wife goes inside to vacuum, so because she's vacuuming, she can't hear Harold's screams, and Harold ends up getting a slug in his glove that he's using to garden, and it's really weird because the glove gets stuck on his hand somehow. I guess the slug attached itself somehow, and he can't get the glove off. So he grabs this like I think it's like a hacksaw or something, and he's ready to or a pair of shears, something like that, and he's wanting to like slice this glove off. But the logic in that whole glove scene makes absolutely no sense. But yet at the same time, still gets under your skin somehow. I guess because of the whole slug situation and everything that's going on. This movie is still able to get under your skin, even though a lot of scenes and situations in it don't make a whole lot of sense. And I don't know, I find that in a weird way kind of cool. He's trying to get this glove off, and his wife can't hear him, and then he like brings down this shelf, and it just falls right on top of him. It's also pretty gory in that part, so I really like that. There's a I doubt it's a real one, but there's a hamster slug scene too, where a slug ends up taking out a hamster, and literally the slug is like the same size as the hamster, so the thing just wraps itself around the hamster and just like basically squeezes it to death. So that was gnarly too. There's one scene after that like eyeball thing. I think it happens right after the eyeball situation, where Mike Brady, or it's the sheriff that gets into an argument with the Italian chef at this Italian restaurant that this happened at with the eye thing. The restaurant was called Trombino's, and the Italian chef is yelling at the sheriff in Italian, and I can understand some of what he says, speaking Portuguese, but she's just like swearing and like "fanculo" with everything, and the sheriff is claiming that there's slugs in the restaurant and that there's slugs going into the food, and the chef is like absolutely denying it and getting all pissed off in Italian. So that was funny. I like that too. This film is just packed with great moments, and that's what I really like about this film, Slugs. I bought it blind, and I've watched it a few times now. I bought it quite a few years ago, and it's a lot of fun, and I find it more enjoyable every time I watch it, and it's definitely not one to miss. I love that poster. I mean, just looking at that poster, if you're a gorehound, you know exactly what to expect going into this film, even blind. This is the original one too. I don't like it as much, but that one is certainly where it's at. Sorry about the glare. It's a fun-ass movie. That Halloween party, again, product of its time. If the way I described it is not up your alley, just prepare for that part. Like I said, bad taste in everything about that situation and how it plays out for poor Pam. But yeah, the gore and the special effects, the practical effects, everything to do with the gore and the guts and the like creepy crawly stuff, masterful in this film. So it's all a lot of fun. It is a fun film, and great release from Arrow. So that's really all I got on this one. And go find it somewhere is my strong recommendation. Subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice, or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more soon, so stay tuned for those. Check out what's on the channel already. Stay tuned for what's coming. Until next review, have a good one. Take care and cheers.